At long last, the New York Rangers have indeed released the 2025-2026 schedule. We go through some of the must-see matchups on the docket. Plus, we're taking a look at an intriguing UFA signing by the Rangers, and we're discussing a high upside prospect from this year's draft.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1352 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So at long last, it's finally here. We know the schedule for the entirety of the Rangers 2025-2026 season. And without much further ado, I want to go ahead and basically just walk through the entire schedule with you guys. So what I'm going to do, as long as I can figure out how to do this, is share the screen on YouTube. And there it is. And for anybody on audio who might be listening to this, don't worry. We'll go ahead and talk you guys through it, so you can follow along with the Rangers schedule. But to start here in October 7th, the start of the regular season, this one was already known. We knew that the Rangers were going to play host to the Pittsburgh Penguins on the NHL's opening night, which is Tuesday, October 7th. The puck will drop at 8 p.m. for that game. It's the second game in a season-opening triple header for the NHL. And as I mentioned the other day, I think that's a good choice. The Rangers and the Penguins, I know both missed the playoffs last year and everything, but it is, a couple of teams that obviously have a very passionate fan bases. It's a rivalry game. There's some interesting storylines with, the two head coaches having each coach for the other team as recently as last season. So, it should be fun, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. And then there was another game that we found out about a little bit earlier today, and that will be the second game of the season, which will see the Rangers in Buffalo against the Sabres on Thursday, October 9th. And the reason we found that out before the rest of the schedule was released is very simply because the Sabres announced it on their Twitter feed. They announced that would be the home opener, Rangers at Sabres on Thursday, October 9th at 7 p.m. And then to close out the opening week for the Rangers here, the opening three games, the Rangers will play the Penguins again, but this time it's going to be on Saturday, October 11th at Pittsburgh at 7 p.m., and that'll obviously be Sullivan's first trip back to Pittsburgh. Sullivan just can't escape the Penguins, man. He coaches them for 10 years, and now two of the first three games of the regular season for this upcoming season will indeed be up against the Penguins. But, I look at this opening stretch here. The Rangers play home Penguins, at Sabres, and then at Penguins. That has to be a bare minimum of a 2-1 start. I would love for it to be 3-0. Beggars can't be choosers after the kind of season that the Rangers just had. But you got to take advantage of this. I don't think too many people are picking the Penguins or the Sabres to win the Stanley Cup this upcoming season. I don't think too many of them are even really picking them to go to the playoffs. The Penguins, they're kind of caught in this no man's land of trying to, go for it with their core that they have or just rebuild. And the Sabres, we keep hearing that they're going to get better, and it just never happens. So until it happens, I'll see it when I believe it. The bottom line, you got to take advantage of that early start. You got to bank some early wins, if for no other reason than just to change the vibes around this Ranger team. And you're playing two non-playoff teams from last year, two teams that were near the bottom of the standings last year. You absolutely must take advantage of that. So hopefully the Rangers can do that. And they better do it, because right after that, in fact, it gets quite a bit more difficult. The schedule after that, you are home Caps, home Oilers, at Leafs, at Canadiens, home Wild. 5 straight playoff games. You got the Caps there, best record in the Eastern Conference last year. Oilers have obviously made it to the finals the last couple of seasons. The Leafs, people can make fun of them for what they do or what they don't do in the playoffs, but that's always a good regular season team. The Canadiens are an emerging team. The Wild are always in the playoffs. It gets very considerably more difficult after that first 3 games. So hopefully the Rangers can bank some points, win some games, get some confidence, get the right kind of vibes in that locker room, those first 3 games. Absolutely huge that the Rangers take advantage of those first 3 games there. And then hopefully, they have the confidence to go toe-to-toe with some of these better teams. After that, kind of tapers off a little bit. You got home Sharks, at Flames, at Canucks, and at Oilers to end the month of October. So kind of a mixed bag there at the end of the month. We'll turn the page here to November. And The first game in November is at Seattle. That's when the Rangers will be wrapping up their West Coast road trip. They always do these early season West Coast road trips, and obviously accompanying that are the late start times. All these games starting at like 10, 10:30. The game against Seattle will be at 10. And then we've got a very, very interesting matchup on November the 4th at home against the Canes. This is going to be the only game that the Rangers play in a 5-day span, but it's a doozy. Obviously, it's a rivalry matchup, and obviously there's storylines galore there with the recent trade of K'Andre Miller. That'll be Miller's first time playing his former team, the Rangers. It'll be his first trip back to Madison Square Garden. Very, very curious to see what kind of a reception K'Andre Miller receives. I would think it would be more good than bad because he was here for a lot of winning like we discussed in the past. Be that as it may, I mean, things went south very quickly, and the Rangers felt like they had to trade him. Could be a little bit of a mixed bag, but I do expect more cheers than boos for K'Andre Miller. And then, I mean, we got to speed this up a little bit here, but you look at the rest of the month of November. I'm not going to go through every single game on the entire schedule. You've got a rivalry game on Saturday the 8th against the Islanders. That's the first matchup with the Islanders this season. You've got Tampa on the 12th. That's a big game for sure. This is an interesting one, too. On Saturday, the 22nd, we will see the Rangers in their first ever matchup against the Utah Mammoth, or at least the first time since they've been called the Mammoth. Last couple of years, Utah Hockey Club. Before that, the Coyotes. Before that, the Jets. And now there's another Jets team, but I digress. And then you wrap up the month. There's a trio of interesting games here at the end of the month here at Canes, at Bruins, and home against Lightning. So 3 what I would call rivalry games for the New York Rangers. And only one of those teams is in the Ranger division, but the temperature has gone up between the Rangers and Lightning in recent seasons, and certainly against the Bruins' original 6 matchup, no love lost there. And in fact, that game against the Bruins will be on a Friday at 1 p.m. That is the day after Thanksgiving. If you guys remember, the Rangers played at the Flyers the day after Thanksgiving. Similar start time. I believe it was also at 1 p.m. It was definitely in the afternoon. But that was what I believed was the worst game of the season for the Rangers. I absolutely just roasted that team after that game was over. Did a live show, basically tore them to shreds for almost an hour. And hopefully things are quite a bit different this time around. Hopefully things go a little bit better for the Rangers on that day this time around. I joked at the time that maybe the Rangers had too much Thanksgiving turkey. Let's hope they don't make the same mistake twice. Or let's hope that whatever their problem was last year, it's not a problem this season. Turn the page to December here. Okay, so this is pretty tough at the start of December. Your home Stars, at Sens, home Avalanche, and home Knights. I mean, 3 of the 4 are at home, but those are obviously what I would say 3 elite teams and 1 very quickly emerging team in the Ottawa Senators. And then it gets a little bit easier, I guess, at Blackhawks, home Canadians, home Ducks, home Canucks. Although, people think the Ducks are kind of an emerging team, and I would agree with that as well. What else stands out here? Again, the end of the month, it is laden with rivalry games. You close out the month of December and the year of 2025 at Caps, at Islanders, at Canes, and at Caps again. So the Rangers are going to have to bring it. The game at the Caps is actually on New Year's Eve, but it's at 12:30 in the afternoon. So you can watch the Rangers and then go out and do whatever you want to do with your friends, your family, whatever it might be. Situation that may or may not involve some adult beverages. Who am I to say for sure? But let's go ahead and turn the page to January. Let's see what we got here. So mixed bag. Yeah, this whole month is really all over the place the way I'm looking at it. You've got some inter-conference matchups. You've got some out-of-conference matchups. You've got some difficult teams, some teams that don't seem like they're very good. Very much a mixed bag here. But they start the new year, do the Rangers, on Friday the 2nd at 8 p.m. on the road against the Panthers. And that's the game that's going to be the outdoor game this upcoming season, or one of the outdoor games. The Rangers will be at the Panthers, and they will be playing at Lone Depot Park, which is, of course, the home field, home stadium of the MLB's Miami Marlins. The Rangers are 5-0 in outdoor games, but that stat is certainly going to be put to the test there against the Panthers. Beyond that, as far as what else is going on this month, I mean, you got a couple of early games on the weekend. There's one on Saturday the 10th at the Bruins. There's one on Saturday the 17th at the Flyers. One on Saturday the 31st at 3:30 p.m. at the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is interesting, too. At the end of the month, you're going to have a back-to-back matchup against the Islanders. There are people that will tell me that no matter what happens and no matter how long these teams go without playing each other in the playoffs, Rangers' biggest rival will always be the New York Islanders. And if you believe that, I mean, for me, they're top 5 for sure. I wouldn't put them at number 1, as I've discussed in the past, but that's going to be a lot of fun. Rangers and Islanders. Rangers are at the Islanders on Wednesday, the 28th of January, and then home against the Islanders on Thursday, the 29th of January. So it's a back-to-back, and you're getting late in the season at this point. I'm sure emotions are going to run high. Maybe we'll see some of that old school, Ranger-Islander feistiness, we'll call it, between the two teams. But we'll flip the page to February, and this is not going to take very long because, as a lot of you, I'm sure, are very well aware, the NHL season will be paused in the middle of February due to the Olympic break. So as a result of this, the Rangers are only going to play a grand total of 3 games in the month of February. They will be at home against the Carolina Hurricanes on Thursday, February 5th. And that's weird in its own right because the Rangers are off the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th of February. Then they play just one more game, the Canes, and then they're off for exactly 3 weeks. Just kind of a weird way to do it, but obviously a rivalry game and a big game. You want to go into that Olympic break with a nice win over your division rival, hopefully feeling good about yourself. But then you have the Olympic break, and then exactly 3 weeks later, the Rangers will play 2 more games in February. They will be at home against the Flyers on the 26th and at home against the Penguins on the 28th. We move on to March, and this is, I think, probably the most condensed month of the season for the Rangers. I haven't tallied up all the games in every month, but just looking at it, I mean, that just looks absolutely loaded. And if my math is correct here, the Rangers will play 16 games in the span of just 30 days. And this is a month that will feature, let's see here, 1 back-to-back, 2 back-to-backs, 3 back-to-backs. So it's going to be busy in the month of March, and there's some tough matchups on there. 2 matchups against the Devils, 3 matchups against the Devils, excuse me. The Rangers and Devils will play each other 3 times in the month of March. You got the Leafs on there. You've got the Panthers on there at the end of the month. You've got the Kings. I mean, there's some good teams on the docket here for sure. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, that's going to be a busy month for the Rangers. And then we'll close out with a quick look at the month of April for the Rangers. There's only a grand total of 7 games, so I'll go ahead and just read them all to you. They are on the 2nd at home against the Canadiens. Then they're at home against the Wings, at home against the Caps. Wings and Caps will be a weekend back-to-back. And then they're at home against the Sabres, at the Stars, at the Panthers, and at the Lightning. And if I could actually just switch the calendar back to March for just a second here. So you'll notice the final 3 games of the month of March are all at home for the Rangers. Home against the Blackhawks, home against the Panthers, home against the Devils. So that's 3 games in a row at home. And then once you get into April, the first 4 games of April will all be at home as well. So we're talking about a 7-game homestand for the Rangers here. There's some winnable games there for sure. There's some tough opponents there as well. But one thing that you'll, I think, certainly agree with me on, that is going to be a massive stretch for the New York Rangers. I don't know how things are going to go this season, but if the Rangers are a playoff bubble team, they're going to want to take advantage of that 7-game homestand at the very end of the year. Because after that, if you leave it to chance here, you're treading in dangerous waters. Because after the 7-game homestand is over, the Rangers have 3 games left. They are all on the road, and they are as follows: at Dallas, at Florida, and at Tampa Bay. So if the Rangers are a bubble playoff team, you don't want to let it come down to those last 3 games. Not saying they can't possibly beat any of those teams, but that's a difficult way to end your season. Now, of course, you'll probably remember the Rangers this past regular season also concluded by playing the Panthers and the Lightning, although both those games were at home, whereas this year, both of them are going to be on the road. So the Rangers won both those games this year, but they were in a situation where the Panthers and Lightning, where they were locked into their playoff matchup and they didn't want to chance anything. They sat a whole bunch of guys. The Rangers were able to win those games. And maybe something similar will happen this year. I mean, who knows? The Rangers could be in a position. Crazier things have happened. The Rangers could be in a position where they're locked into their playoff spot and they don't have to play their guys either. But like I said, just eyeballing the schedule right now, at Dallas, at Panthers, at Lightning to end the season, all that after a 7-game homestand, you do not want to let it come down to those matchups because it might not end well for you, depending on the situation that those 3 teams are in and how they might approach the upcoming season. But I figure we'll keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to shift our attention to a forward that the Rangers added in free agency, kind of an under-the-radar signing, but somebody that I'm intrigued by. That would be Trey Fix-Wolanski, and we will go ahead and discuss him in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be all about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets even faster and even easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling to find the best deals? Gametime's Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section just for you. Ever wonder what your view will actually be like before you get to the venue? The app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. Awesome feature, by the way. With Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Lowest last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, we just want to give a big shout out to the Everydayers. As always, thank you guys so much for supporting this podcast. And in the next episode, we're going to continue talking about the Rangers draft class. We're going to get through a couple more of the prospects that they drafted in this year's class. We're going to get into some best and worst case scenarios for different players on the New York Rangers as well. The Everydayers are certainly going to recognize this segment. Something we do every offseason. We basically point the spotlight at this player or that player on the Rangers, talk about everything that could possibly go right this season and everything that could possibly go wrong this season, and then basically just have an assessment of that player at the end of the episode. But for today, I want to go ahead and continue diving into the Rangers free agent class, another kind of under-the-radar pickup that the Rangers made during that initial wave of free agency that began a couple of weeks ago, and that was the signing of forward Trey Fix-Wolanski to a one-year deal for the league minimum of $775,000. Now, as far as his background is concerned, it's something of an interesting one, and he's something of an intriguing player. I'll explain why in just a minute. But first of all, for his background, drafted by the Columbus Blue Jackets in the 7th round of the 2018 NHL draft at number 204 overall. So right off the bat, if you're a 7th rounder, you make it to the NHL, I think that deserves a little round of applause in the first place. There's a lot that are drafted that late that never sniffed the NHL, and Trey Fix-Wolanski has at least made it there. He's played 26 career games. But one of the reasons why he probably slipped as far as he did in the draft class is that he stands all of 5'7" and 191 pounds. And I know for some people listening to this, some people watching this, that might be a deal breaker right off the bat. But stick with me on this. I'm going to explain why I actually do like this pickup despite, his obvious lack of size. He is somebody that, in spite of that lack of size, is known for mixing it up, is known for being an agitator, and somebody that will get under the skin of his opponents. Great speed, plays with a lot of energy as well. And as far as the NHL stats are concerned, like I said, he hasn't played a whole lot, 26 total games over the last 3 seasons combined, all of them with the Columbus Blue Jackets. He had 6 games in 2021, 2022, then 9 games in 2022, 2023, and then this past season, actually in 2023, 2024, he played in 11 games. So obviously steadily climbing over the years here. In those 26 combined games, 4 goals, 2 assists, -6, average 10 minutes and 35 seconds of ice time per night. So obviously he's not playing that much. 18 block shots, 29 hits, and 6 takeaways against 7 giveaways. We will get to his AHL stats a little bit later because this is somebody that the numbers really do pop when you look at what he's done in the AHL. Fair to call him an elite player at the AHL level. As far as his contract with the Rangers, though, a 1-year, 2-way deal that is worth the league minimum of $775,000. He will be an unrestricted free agent once this upcoming season concludes, and he was coming off of a 2-year deal that paid him the same number, $775K per season. Now, as far as what his role is going to be in the Ranger organization, and does he have any chance to make the NHL roster? Never say never. I'm never going to look at anybody unless it's like just an enormous long shot or it's somebody that was taken in the 7th round just this year. I would never look at somebody and just say, nope, no chance. But I will say, I think he is very much fighting an uphill battle to make the Rangers roster. And I think probably the best place for him to start this season is the place where he's going to end up, and that's in the AHL with the Hartford Wolfpack. When you look at this Ranger team and how everything lines up right now, there are 6 forwards that are certainly going to be on the opening night roster. And after you look past that, you've got some guys that are likely and some guys that are long shots, but there's a lot of people gunning for those last 6 forward spots, or I guess we could say last 7, because the Rangers will very likely carry a 13th forward as a healthy scratch. But beyond, the guys they're going to play in the top 6, or the 6 most prominent Ranger forwards, once we look beyond that, there's a lot of competition for those last few spots. You've got 3 big prospects, kind of the big 3 is what I've been calling them. Gabe Perreault, Brian Hoffman, Brett Berard. You got to figure a bare minimum of one of them is going to be on the team. And I would think probably 2 of them will make the team to start this upcoming season. We will see. You've also got some dark horse prospects, guys like Dylan Robrick, who really improved his stock this past season with the Wolfpack. Adam Sakura, former second-round pick by the Rangers. Noah Laba, he's got a little bit of buzz around him. Same can be said for Yaroslav Smolash and a couple others as well. And then you've got the veteran NHLers, the guys that, have kind of been journeymen at times in their career, and in other cases, they're young players on the Rangers who are just getting started. But everybody from Radish to Parsonen, Carrick, Edstrom, Rempe, Brodzinski, Dowling, all these guys are going to have their chance. That's a lot of players that are gunning for 6 or 7 spots. And you can throw Trey Fix-Wolanski into the mix as well. But certainly I think it's an uphill battle at this point. I mentioned his AHL stats a couple of minutes ago here. So thus far in his pro hockey career, Trey Wolanski has played in parts of 6 seasons in the AHL. All 6 of them are with the Cleveland Monsters. 289 regular season games, 112 goals, 147 assists, so a total of 259 points in 289 games, also a minus 17 in that time. He has had 60 points or more in all of the last 3 seasons that he has spent in the AHL. He is at more than a point per game in those 3 seasons combined, if you put all the numbers together. And that run also includes a 71-point season in 61 games back in 2022-2023. And for what it's worth, he was also an alternate captain for Cleveland this past season. It is not an exaggeration to suggest that he might be the greatest player in Cleveland Monsters history. Take that for what it's worth, but this guy has done nothing but produce at the AHL level. And in fact, Fix-Wolansky finished his time with the Cleveland Monsters with the 3rd most games played at 289, first in goals at 112, first in assists at 147 assists, and obviously then also first in points with 259 points. Again, I don't think it's too much of a stretch, or, I mean, honestly, it might just be the God's honest truth that he is indeed the best player in the history of that franchise. There's people that are suggesting that, because, other guys that have passed through there, like if they're big-time NHL prospects, and they're only going to spend so much time with the Cleveland Monsters before they're up in the NHL. And I think with that being the case, I haven't looked at all the archives and everything, but his name is certainly up there. And there are a lot of Cleveland Monsters fans and even some Blue Jackets fans that I could find that were certainly disappointed that he's no longer going to be part of the organization. But he's with the Rangers on a 1-year deal. And I mentioned earlier in the episode here that Trey Fix-Wolanski, is somebody that produces at every level. Certainly the AHL, not so much in the NHL, but it is a short sample size, which is 26 games played at the NHL. It also goes for the Edmonton Oil Kings of the WHL. He was well over a point per game there. In his final season with the Oil Kings, 37 goals, 65 assists for a total of 102 points in 65 games. So forget about being a point per game player. He was actually an assist per game player for his last season there with the Oil Kings. And then also in the postseason, 16 games, 14 points, and he was a plus 36 in that 102-point season that he enjoyed there with Edmonton. The bottom line, this guy has produced everywhere he's been. Can he do that in the NHL? Can he do anything close to that in the NHL? That obviously remains to be seen. It remains to be seen, really, if he'll ever even get that chance, because as we mentioned earlier, his size will always work against him. I was curious to find out where exactly he stacked up against other, smaller NHL players. So I Googled it. I wanted to find, okay, who's the smallest players in the NHL right now? Nobody is shorter than 5'7" that is currently on an NHL roster. And that is Trey Fix-Wolanski's exact height. He is exactly 5'7". But you look at a couple of the names here, Matt Zuccarello. I mean, I think we're pretty familiar with him. He's 5'7". So too is Cole Caulfield. So too is Logan Stankoven. All 3 of them are 5'7". They're all good players, but no one's any shorter than that. So it's one of those things. I mean, we know Zuccarello was undrafted as well. it's always going to be an uphill battle. It's always going to be something that Trey Fix-Wolanski is going to have to overcome. But I'm rooting for him. And if nothing else, I do think that he will be in a very prominent role with the Hartford Wolfpack. You got to figure with those numbers that he's put up in recent seasons, he is looking at a top 6 role, very likely on the top power play as well. This guy is an elite AHL player, like I said just a minute ago, and maybe that's his ceiling. Maybe he'll never become an AHL regular. We'll see. I mean, he is 26 years old, so not ancient, but not at the start of his career either. We'll see how everything plays out. Also worth noting that the Rangers were said to be in on Maxim Shabanov. This is somebody that had a little bit of buzz on social media among Ranger fans and other fan bases as well. Shabanov ultimately decided to sign with the New York Islanders, but Shabanov was 3rd in the KHL in scoring last season. And what was interesting is one day after he signed with the Islanders, that's when the Rangers signed Trey Fix-Wolanski. And I'm wondering if that was a little bit of a plan B. They're both on the smaller side. As we mentioned with Trey Fix-Wolanski, he's 5'7". Shabanov is 5'8". So I feel like it was maybe a little bit of a fallback option, smaller player that can score and, if nothing else, should have a prominent role for the Hartford Wolfpack in the AHL. I think it was a little bit of a plan B for the Rangers, though. So bottom line, I mean, I like this signing for what it is. You've got a 7th rounder here who's probably already a career overachiever. Still somewhat young at 26. I mean, again, you're not at the start of your career. You're certainly not at the end of it either, though. Some NHL experience as well. And again, somebody whose floor seems to be a very productive player in the AHL. So we'll see what happens. Again, intriguing player. I'm curious to see how it goes. Don't think he'll make the NHL roster for the Rangers. Don't think he probably should make the NHL roster for the Rangers, but it's somebody that I'm going to keep an eye on this season for sure. In just a second, we're going to keep everything rolling. We're going to shift our attention to the Rangers 2025 NHL draft class, and more specifically, Mikkel Eriksen, and why a lot of Ranger fans seem to be pretty high on this pick. We're going to go ahead and do that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you are also building wealth. We've all been there before. We've all been in a situation where, the money that you expect to be in your bank account just isn't there. And these expenses can add up pretty quickly. You take your family to a Rangers game, you do this activity, you do that activity, you go out to eat, whatever it might be. A lot of times it can make a major dent in your bank account. But here with Monarch Money, you can take control of your finances. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. All right, let's go and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Close out the day by talking about another member of the New York Rangers 2025 draft class. And in this case, it's going to be 4th round center, Mikkel Eriksen. Now, full disclosure here, Michael, I'm not really sure. The way it's spelled makes me believe that it's probably pronounced Mikkel. I scoured the internet. There's videos of him on YouTube. No announcers. Haven't heard anyone actually pronounce his name. So if anybody has any intel there, feel free to let me know. But for the time being, I'm going to go with Mikkel Eriksen. There we go. Mikkel Eriksen. As far as his background is concerned, this is very interesting right off the top here. 17 years old. He was actually the youngest player that was available in this year's draft class. And if memory is serving me correctly, I believe the same could also be said when the Rangers drafted Adam Sakura a few years back. And of course, he's been with the Hartford Wolfpack, and we'll see what the future might hold for Sakura. But interesting that they've done this twice in the last couple of years now, taking the youngest player available in the draft class. Eriksen is also a lefty shot. He goes 5'11", 187 pounds. There are a lot of Ranger fans that seem to be feeling this pick. They seem to be pretty happy with it. And when you look at everything that we know about Eriksen, there does seem to be a lot to like. Again, he was taken in the 4th round by the Rangers, number 111 overall. It seems to be something of an upside pick. Most people seem to believe that this is somebody that has a pretty decent ceiling for the 4th round. Also, though, maybe a little bit of a low floor as well, something of a boomer bust prospect. But by the time you get to the 4th round, that's a risk that I am certainly willing to take because, you take somebody in the 4th round, you don't really expect them to turn into a superstar, but what if they do, right? I mean, Igor Shesterkin has done it, and obviously that's quite a bit different because we're talking about a goalie, and there have been other examples over the years as well. But man, yeah, I mean, we get to the 4th round, roll the dice a little bit. Why not? Take your chances with somebody, see if you can develop him. I know that the Rangers have obviously had some issues developing some of their homegrown draft picks over the past bunch of years, however far you want to go back. But regardless, I still do like this pick because there is some upside here. As far as Eriksen's strengths are concerned, from what I've been able to gather from scouts and whatnot, very good puck handler, very good at playing in transition, drives the center of the ice, mostly plays center, but he can handle the wing as well. So you've got some position versatility right there, in addition to everything else. Has a good shot and is a shoot-first player. So that's great to hear as well. Rangers obviously don't have enough of that. High motor player, active forechecker, and has a very strong work ethic. In terms of weaknesses, things that maybe he doesn't do quite as well or just areas that need to improve, skating is one of them. By the accounts that I've been able to find, it's not like his skating is a massive liability, but it's certainly not a strength either, and that's an area where he could certainly stand to improve. Not a whole lot of flash to his game, not a whole lot of wow factor. This is somebody that just is a very solid two-way center, all-around game kind of player. Not somebody who's going to be able to create plays on his own, and also not overly physical, but despite that, he will still go to the dirty parts of the rink, and he will still fight for the puck a little bit, despite not having, a massive frame. I wouldn't really call him small, but I mean, I guess by NHL player standards, 5'11", 187, you probably are a little bit on the smaller side. But regardless, even though he's not overly physical, he will go to the dirty parts of the rink and at least fight for the puck. So that's nice to hear. The other thing that I thought was interesting about this whole situation, some of you guys might be interested to know about this as well, is how the Rangers came to have this pick here in the 4th round. Because originally, it was not theirs. It belonged to the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks, last October, made a trade with the Avalanche. So then the Avalanche had hold of this 4th round pick. And then on March 1st of this year, the Rangers acquired this pick in part of that deal that sent Ryan Lindgren and Jimmy Vesey to the Colorado Avalanche. And there were some other pieces moving in that deal as well. Calvin DeHaan was involved in that, a couple other players and draft picks as well, but you get the idea. That's how the Rangers came into having this draft pick. As far as stats for Eriksen are concerned, in 2024-25, he played in 40 games in the J20 National League, had 22 goals, 21 assists for a total of 43 points in 40 games, was also a +1. And between the J18 national team last year and the J20 national team last season, Eriksen played in 5 playoff games, scored 4 goals, had 4 assists. So you've got 8 points in 5 playoff games. Very small sample size, but nice to see him performing, obviously, when the lights are their brightest. And he's also represented Norway on various national teams as well. And not too long ago, 2 weeks, I believe, to the day here. What's today? Today's the 16th. Yeah, 2 weeks ago to the day, the CHL import draft was held. And Eriksen, in that draft, went in the 3rd round to the Moose Jaw Warriors at number 126 overall. So I'm very curious to see how he ends up doing with Moose Jaw. We will see. I figure we'll go ahead and leave you guys with a couple of scouting reports here on Eriksen and then, just call it for the day. This one comes to us from the Elite Prospects 2025 NHL Draft Guide. Eriksen's soft skills are his standout qualities. He's a deceptive attacker who hides his intentions from defenders, often getting them to show their cards first before adjusting his plans accordingly. He's very good at slowing the pace of the game down and delaying, waiting for the best play to present itself before executing. And then this one comes to us from Neutral Zone. Eriksen is a highly productive two-way forward who plays a heavy, detailed game and projects as a bottom 6 NHL player with middle 6 upside. He is reliable, versatile. He is a reliable, versatile center with translatable habits, including a strong motor, high-end puck anticipation, above-average passing touch, and a shoot-first mentality. While Eriksen is not overly dynamic or explosive, he is well-rounded and competes in all 3 zones, making him a safe bet to earn trust at higher levels. And it's interesting. I've seen a lot where, people seem to believe that Eriksen is something of a boomer bust prospect. That one from Neutral Zone almost makes it sound like he's a little bit of a floor play. We'll see. I mean, it's hard to say for sure, especially once you start getting into these middle to later rounds. But regardless, I think there is a decent amount to like here for Eriksen, especially somebody going as late as the 4th round here, as he did to the New York Rangers. So I figure we could pretty much call it there. There was one more note I wanted to mention on Eriksen, though. His father played hockey in Norway, and his uncle Espen Knutson. He was actually drafted by the Hartford Whalers all the way back in 1990. He was a center. He ended up playing in 207 career NHL games with the Ducks and the Jackets. Last appeared in the NHL in 2003, 2004. So a little piece of trivia there for you. He had an uncle that played in the NHL. Like I said, I figure we'll call it there for today. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. If anyone would like to share their Stefan Matteau stories, where they were, who they were with, what they were doing when he scored Game 7, double overtime against the Devils, feel free to send those stories my way. We're going to go ahead and read those stories on a later offseason edition of Locked On New York Rangers. Any Sam Rosen stories as well, any interactions that you had with Sam over the years that you think would be fun to share, that could be an episode all by itself as well. And just a reminder that we are, of course, doing 3 episodes per week from now until September. Once we get into September, we'll be back to 5 episodes per week for the very foreseeable future. But we'll call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, @jchik17. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.